Hey everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day. This is Kid Hero, and I wanted to do a short live stream in regards to setting up a semi-formal public event or event planning. Now, this is just going to cover the basic information. If by chance you're wanting to do something a little bit more formal, there are more steps, but this is to hopefully cover all the basics as far as liability. It's for educational use only, and I would definitely make sure that you check your local laws, whether it's state or city, to make sure that you're following all the rules in regards to setting up a public event. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. I have a short list of things that I wanted to put out, and to kind of do this a segue for things that I actually have going on in my community. So I'm planning on having a open gym style video game kind of tournament for students in public schools. It's going to be held on a weekend. We're currently planning on having it on Saturday, but I actually got a notification, so it's actually going to be delayed 1 week time. So it's going to actually occur 1 week from Saturday. So I thought this would be a good time to not only put this information out there, that way if by chance you wanted to do something like this in your area, you would be able to do it, and then hopefully break down the system. That way it makes it a little bit easier to understand. So let me go ahead and switch over to a secondary view. That way you can see what it is that I'm looking at. If you just bear with me one moment, I believe... Yep, there we go. Okay, I got my Word document open. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to actually type in here. That way, for those of you that are watching either live or on the replay, you'll be able to see all the information as far as what's being covered. You can take notes or you can refer back to this video. That way it hopefully provides you with at least the starter information to more immediate information. So you want to throw a public event for the community. Now, the first thing that you will need to do, and again, we're going to start off really simple, is you need an idea. And I think the idea more than anything is most important, because you want to make sure that whatever idea that you're doing, fundamentally keep it as simple as possible. What it is that you want to do. You can also take a look to see what's been done in your area. If you live in a more remote area, then obviously certain types of events may be more rare. But if you kind of compare it to similar style events from, say, something else that's unrelated. So if you were wanting to do something that was kind of like a video game tournament or a event similar to that, but nothing like that has happened in your area, you can try to compare it to, depending upon the size, and we'll get to that as well, but what other events have occurred in your area, like weddings, maybe graduation, things like that. It gives you kind of a basic rundown of all the things that usually occur at a public event, one of them being people showing up. The number of people, again, we'll discuss that in one of the steps that we have here below. But again, fundamentally, you just want a simple idea. And again, I like the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid. Number 2. So, depending upon what your idea is, this is going to be now your chance to start to refine it. So what we're going to do is you need what's called a proposal. And the reason why you want a proposal is depending upon if you're collaborating with other organizations or if you need certain permission from individuals to have whatever your event is. The proposal actually is your piece of paper that shows everything. It will not only show the type of event that you want to do for the public, the idea of what the purpose of the event, who it's for, the number of people, a rough budget of how much you plan to spend, and of course, in a case of liability and other things that could potentially happen, permission slips if needed, either from the state, local occupancy license or permissions, and of course, insurance and emergency contact. Now, I know that seems like a lot and it can be very overwhelming, which is why, again, we're doing kind of this list. But once we start to go through it, it actually breaks it down considerably and makes it a lot easier. That way, if anyone has any questions, you can refer them to the proposal, or since you've done the proposal, if someone ends up calling you to get more information, maybe they want to sponsor. If your event does allow for sponsors to happen, obviously, if you're a wedding planner, it's a little irregular to have a sponsor for a wedding. However, other family members, depending upon family of the bride and groom, or however the wedding is set up, a family member may want to specifically pay for one thing or see what needs to be paid for. So if you're getting food or it's being catered, that could be a cost. Maybe decorations could be a cost. If you're needing to rent equipment like a PA system, that way you can address however many people if it's a larger amount. Or if it's a smaller amount, maybe a PA system isn't needed. But again, your proposal basically states everything about your event, and you want to get this down on paper, especially if you need permission from other people. So let me go ahead and add that in there. That way, hold on one second. I have a mechanical keyboard, and I wanted to make sure that of course, it's not going to type it in there. Sad day, we are struggle streaming. Okay, good, it did type it in there, it just put it the wrong color. Font color. There we go. Okay. Refine your idea into a proposal, purpose of the event, etc., etc. Okay. I know that next line, let's see, after you know. I don't know why that cut off. After you know who is going. So step 2 is begin to write your proposal. More than anything, the first thing that you need on the proposal, again, is your idea and who is coming. And again, as we go to these next steps, who is coming or who the event is for becomes extremely more important, and we'll actually discuss that. So, for step 3, determine what your budget is. And again, if this is something that's really informal, maybe it's a after-school club, whether it's in elementary, junior high, or high school. Normally in junior high or high school, club meetings become a little bit more regular, especially in college as well. Depending upon if it's a informal club, say you haven't gone to the student organization and help to actually fill out what's called a articles of incorporation. I know that's a little bit ahead of what the scope of this conversation is, but basically that's another sheet of paper that says you're a legit after school club versus it being just an informal meeting of people. The reason why you want to know what your budget is before we go any further. What is your budget? You want to know how much money that you're going to actually invest into this event. And I know for informal events, you can kind of get away just by more or less flying by the seat of your pants. Maybe the only things that you'll possibly need is maybe a pizza for a group of friends or colleagues in school, and maybe the soda or whatever you're going to be drinking at the time. But understanding or having a plan for how much you intend to spend That way you can follow that as a guideline. And then if by chance you get sponsorships, if you're going to fundraise prior to your event, then you can see, okay, we made $40 from fundraising before the event, so now we can spend that $40 on something. It gives you a much better idea. Um, Making sure that you have a budget is extremely important, because at the end of the day, hopefully if you're throwing an event, you're not by yourself while you do it. But if you are the only person, or even if it's a small group, the group is going to be responsible for whatever debt that your event, or whatever liability that your event has. So make sure that you at least have something realistic down on your proposal as far as what you expect to spend. And as far as keeping your budget simple, I would say your basic budget, you want to include all your expenses. And while we will get to the location expense, go ahead and leave the location expense off of your budget. And the reason why I'm saying leave it off your budget is because that's actually going to be the next topic that we're going to discuss. But as far as your budget, put everything down. Oops, wrong window. There we go. List all your expenses, and we will get to location. The reason why, let's see, location expense comes next. The reason why location is its own separate deal, I'm going to actually bring up a story that is very relevant to this topic. In a local in a local area, they often do what's called Adoption Day. Adoption Day is typically annually. There is a organization that actually sponsors it. I'm not going to say what that organization's name is, just because, well, once you hear the story, you'll understand. And I don't want to necessarily make it seem like I'm picking on them, but it brings up a very important point. So if you're throwing a adoption day for the children to celebrate them finding their families, depending upon where the majority of those children get adopted to, if you have your location, I apologize, if you have your location in a site or at a site that's extremely far away to where they cannot get to it, then you shouldn't have the event at that location. I'll say that once more. If you have the ability to have an event at the best possible location, however, if the people that you're throwing the event for can't get there, then you have no reason or no business throwing your event at a location that your guests or your clients or your donors or the people who are supposed to come to your event, if they can't make it there, don't hold it in a location to where they can't get to. So more than anything for location, the first thing is make sure that the location is available within budget, but more importantly, make sure the guests can get there. So in the example that I was actually mentioning, since the children to celebrate Adoption Day lived extremely far away, there was actually a big issue with the children not being able to go, mainly because local buses didn't go out to that location. The location was actually extremely beautiful, well kept. It was hosted by one of the sponsoring organizations, which made it great for the children who were able to make it. But please consider the guests or whoever you plan to come, if they can't make it out there, then basically you're wasting your money or wasting your time or setting yourself up for failure. Also, make sure that it's within the budget. find out different locations. That way you can determine what is a fair price and then make sure that it's a place that you can afford. Availability may also be a problem, and the reason why I say it may also be a problem, depending upon if there's other events that go on at that location, whether it's weddings, graduation, other types of events that happen there, birthdays, maybe the weather's nice. Even at city parks, you can get what's called an occupancy permit, and it allows you to have a gathering at the location within a certain number of people. This varies depending upon your state or city, and once you hit a certain threshold of how many people come, then you need to get a certain type of permit. So say, for example, if I was going to throw an event that had 50 people, and let's say 400 people showed up, if my permit didn't allow for that many people, you can actually potentially receive a fine for that. The fines vary depending upon the state, and usually they still charge you for the license or permit that you should have gotten. So if you're thinking you're trying to save yourself a little money, thinking people may not show up, definitely give some thought to the planning to make sure that whatever requirement or expectation of people to show, that way you're covered on that. And then also make sure, like for fire code, if you rent out a hall or a building and it's only meant for 40 people, the last thing you want is for your event to be shut down because you're over occupancy. So do your research, see how many people are going to come. If by chance more people come, you'll just unfortunately have to say, I'm sorry, you'll have to turn them away because you'll also receive a fine for violating fire code requirements as far as the number of people that are allowed in a place. But it's important to look at each and every one of those: budget, availability, and then make sure that guests can get there. And I'll also add in permits if they're required. Okay, so that was number 4. So number 5, again, I had briefly touched on. Let's see. 5 is also going to be mainly permits in general. While that does go in relation to location, it specifically varies, and different locations require different types of permits. It may be a state permit, could be city, it could be building, or it could be for the rental hall as far as your reservation. Making sure that you not only have these permits as well as your contract. And the reason why I'm writing the contract is there will be on occasion where due to popularity, maybe there's different types of management and a miscommunication or lack of communication at the hall, and there ends up being a double booking. One thing you really want to look for, especially if you're reserving a hall or any sort of event, make sure that your contract says that you will get priority in the event or case if there's a double booking. A lot of organizations may or may not have that in the contract. I would specifically dispute that if it wasn't in the contract, because you definitely want to make sure that your event happens on the day and on the time that you plan, and that everything is supposed to be ready. If it's not ready, or if the site cancels you because you're a smaller organization, if it's not in the contract, then you're kind of left out, on your own, which is really unfortunate. You want to make sure that if all the people show up, that you can get into the building. Make sure that's in the contract. Will the place be unlocked for you? At what time will you have access to the building? Make sure that's in the contract. That way, if the people are supposed to show up at 5:30 to unlock the building, that way you have at least 30 minutes. Maybe you need an hour to decorate everything before people start coming. So you need the building unlocked at 5 if the event starts at 6. Uh, until what time are you allowed in the building? Do you have to be out of the building immediately by 9 o'clock? If you have to be out at 9, you're going to have to tell people to leave at 8. That way you can properly clean, and then so you don't receive any additional fines for not properly cleaning. You left late. There could be all things in your contract, and make sure you really read and understand your contract. If you're not familiar with contracts, then it might be best to, ask another person, because especially with event planning, there can be a lot going on, and having someone that at least has a little bit of experience, it can be definitely helpful. But if you start off relatively small, get yourself more experience. That way you can build yourself up to something bigger. It really helps out a lot in the long run. So that was contracts, permits. One other thing that we will add to that is equally important. If you're going to have children at your event, you will need permission slips and liability waivers. The liability waivers, it's good to put it out there on your event slip as far as, if there's any damage to personal property, your vehicle in the parking lot, if anything, gets stolen, whoever is hosting is not liable for that. Also, having that posted on the door at the entrance when you're allowing guests in, that way it can be visibly seen, is important. But again, making sure that you're covering all your bases. That way people don't come to you looking for compensation for anything that could potentially happen that's not your fault on the site that you're having your event. I definitely am glad that I remembered that. It's equally important. The permission slips is definitely important, especially if you're throwing events for minors. Um, and there could be a few other things that could be in here, but again, a lot of this is just general information, but I want to make sure that I'm at least getting you to think of all the things that you should really be looking for, try to prepare yourself with. Okay, so after you have these 5 basic things, the 6th thing is you're going to start to rewrite your proposal. So as you're going through each of these, you're going to be adding this to your sheet. And as you get closer to your event, maybe if you have other sponsors, fundraisers, things will change. Maybe you haven't gotten the contract for the reservation or booking for your site, and something happens at the site that's not your fault or the site's fault, and you can no longer have the event there. Maybe they had some damage to the structure and at the hall that you plan on renting, and it needs to have its roof repaired before it could be rented out to anyone. In that particular case, depending upon how soon in advance they let you know, that's just one of those things. You'll have to find a new location. Maybe you had a budget cut, someone that said that they would sponsor the event, they pulled out, or they only made a partial donation or had a change of plan. Maybe that money was no longer available, so now you no longer have the budget for it. That's really something that you need to consider as far as your event planning, which is why you're going to constantly need to rewrite your proposal. It's one of those things that it can be very frustrating when trying to write a well-established proposal, especially if others are counting on you for it. Maybe your group is a moderately sized to a larger group to where everybody is doing one thing. Whoever's in charge of writing the proposal will definitely need to be in contact with everyone else in the group, because maybe John is looking up the sites, Kimberly is working on the actual budget portion, tallying up all the expenses, and then you have Janice who's writing either the liability permission slips, trying to file for permits for the actual event. Keeping a open communication amongst everyone as far as what's going to be covered is extremely, extremely important. And then the last thing I would definitely have you consider, and this really depends on the size of your event, is definitely consider insurance. And obviously, this can be, for the average person, maybe a little bit of overdoing it. But the reason why I'm mentioning that at least having insurance for your event is important is things happen. It's just like driving a car. None of us plan on getting in a car accident, but we want to make sure that we have coverage just in case if something does happen. If you don't have it, depending upon how severe damage was, if you're by yourself or if you're a smaller organization, you could really take a major hit on the liability of paying for damages. Maybe you didn't have the liability waiver and someone bumps into someone else in the parking lot. So now, since that person drove off and their car is damaged, now they want you to pay for the repair of their car. Or if someone came to your party and they damaged a chair or a table, the insurance is supposed to cover that. So making sure that you have the proper coverage just in case if something happens is definitely important to have and something that you should consider. It's one of those things that really gets left out. If it's a birthday party, I wouldn't necessarily say that you need insurance for a birthday party, but depending upon the types of activities that are being done at the birthday party, let's say you're taking a group, you're taking your child plus a group of his friends to go karting. Obviously, the business that does the go karting is going to want a liability waiver from those children's parents just in case if they get hurt. It may be in your best interest to have them sign a waiver. That way, if they get hurt while they're with you, that they're not going to try to get you for hospital damages just because you decided to have your birthday party at Jim's go-karting or whatever. Hopefully, we like to think that people know that things do happen, but it's important to cover your bases to make sure that you're just not liable for it. Now for specifically the event that I'm throwing, since that is at actually a public school, we need permission from either the principal or one of the deans or administrators to actually throw the event. Making sure that you have security that's actually at the school, since it's happening after school hours, is extremely important. I would highly recommend having insurance to cover the event at the school because there's many expensive things that are at the school that could potentially be damaged, especially since it's happening after hours. Making sure that you have key people that can help clean up. That way you're leaving the place as good as it was, if not better. That way there's no complaints about trash that was left from your event at that site. And then, let's see, I mentioned security. During the event itself, if you need actual coordinators or planners at the event to show people where everything is, if you have let's say, a moderately sized group, and we're still thinking this in the terms of being relatively small, but if you have at least 20 people and there's only one of you, at least having another person that can answer questions, simple questions like where's the restroom? When is this particular thing going to start? When do you expect it to end? Is there contact information that I can call since maybe that person needs to run somewhere? And that would also be something that needs to be in the permission slip as well. Are parents required to be present with their children? I know there is kind of a unspoken expectation with some parents that, okay, it's an event at school, so I can drop my child off and then I have free time for X amount of hours and then I can come back and pick up my child. It's important to write that oftentimes in bold in the permission slip. That way the parent will be able to see it immediately, saying, yes, this is a school-sponsored event. However, one parent is required to be present for their child during the event, or if there will be enough staffing to maintain whatever the ratio is. It's different for every school and state. Typically, it's one adult, whether it's a teacher, guardian, or supervisor per 15 children. And if by chance you go over that threshold, then you will need more adult volunteers, teachers, security, or anything like that. But yeah, let me make sure that I put that with the liability waivers. Are parents required to be present? Because that's really, really important. Sometimes it's one of those things that can be overlooked, but again, it's really important. So, looking at my event needs permission to have it at the site since it's going to be after school hours on a weekend. What's going to be going on, getting that information as far as the activities, making sure that you have the proper equipment. So making sure that there's either TVs, the systems for the students to play, enough controllers, making sure that there's a cap on the number of students. That way you can stay within your ratio. And then confirming, let's see, that's another thing. Confirm with parents that their student can participate. And the reason why is if you met capacity, make sure that the parent's number is on the permission slip, because say if you can only handle 20 students or 20 people, you have to call that parent to let them know that their child can't come. And that may be a tough conversation to have, but if occupancy only allows for 20 students due to safety, it's one of those hard conversations that you will have to have with the parent. That way the parent just doesn't show up with the child. You've gotten verbal confirmation that Johnny or Lisa cannot come to the event because there's just not enough staff. Yeah, so make sure that you're in communication with them, and that's definitely going to be under the same permission slip liability portion. That way the parents know. That way it can be documented that you spoke with the parents. And that way, if you tell the child forgets, or maybe they have other plans, so the parent drops off the child and then the child never comes in. And then now the child thinks that, or sorry, now the parent thinks that the child went to the event, which they never did, and they're going to be probably very angry or potentially nasty with you because there was no communication there. So making sure that you covered those bases. If you need additional people to assist, making sure, again, that everyone is out of the building. And of course, the last note or last key thing is emergency contact information, and this is for everyone. The site, admins, parents, police, or medical. And the reason why you need to have all these down is because it's a event that's happening after school hours. Maybe permission was given by the principal, but the principal doesn't want to receive an emergency phone call at whatever time. Whoever's overseeing the event that occurs on whatever site that you're at, whether it's a college, a rental hall, a school, there's going to be someone that you'll need to call that will need to know something happened, whether it's an injury, an accident of any kind, or anything like that. The order at which you call these people, depending upon how severe the emergency is, I would probably choose that either police, medical, or fire are definitely the ones that you want to call first, because they're the ones that will grant the most assistance during a extreme emergency. The next one, of course, would be the site, whether it's the manager or the owner. This could also be the administrator or principal. And of course, if it was unfortunately a child, making sure that the parents are contacted as well to let them know what's going on. Uh, if by chance it is in the case of a medical emergency, giving the parent a call to give them updates on what's going on, where their child was taken, just in case if they needed to go to the hospital, to let them know. That way they can go directly to the hospital to meet their child there versus showing up at the school just to let them know that they already left. So having all that information is really important. Again, we hope that none of that will ever happen during our event, but making sure that the proper people are called just in case, or being prepared. That way you have a contingency plan to follow. Um, whether it's, knowing who knows CPR, who will always have their cell phone, all of them, who's in charge, who makes the tough decisions. If there was an issue on site, but it didn't necessarily require police or medical to come, then follow the chain of command. Who's in charge? Is it the event planner? Is it the rental hall owner? Is it the manager? Uh, if you're having it at a private residence, then, there may be a different chain that you call. But making sure that all this is inside your proposal will definitely save you considerable time when you go to present this proposal to whoever, whether you're looking for a sponsor, if you're showing it to the place that you're hoping to go to, either the rental hall or the public place. It shows that, one, you're organized, you know what's going on. Um, it helps reassure that party. They may be more lenient to allow that kind of event, or depending upon the event that you're trying to do, it may be against their policy to do that. But since you're presenting the proposal, there's no question after the fact, I never knew that this was going on. Well, yes, you did, because I showed you the proposal. I had you sign my proposal. I had you sign the contract that happened at the site. That way there's like no takebacks, basically. You're covering all your bases. You know exactly what's going on. And make sure that you keep the most updated version. I would definitely, you want to date your proposal. Date your proposal, that way you know you have the most updated version. Maybe the most updated version, you removed some stuff. Maybe you decided that no food would be served at the event, and someone else that's in your group sees, oh, we need to order pizza, so they order pizza. The pizza shows up, but no one has any money. Now the pizza place is expecting to get paid for pizzas that never should have been ordered. So there's a lot of different information in here. If you have any questions regarding specifically site planning or throwing an event on your own, please let me know. It definitely can be a great experience, not only for the people that you're trying to do the event for, but also it can be a great experience for you as well, because event planning is a skill and a job itself. It's basically a job that requires lots of multitasking. Working with whoever your client or patrons are, working with the owner or managers on site. Uh, Wedding planners and event planners make considerable money because of the stress related to throwing a major event. The average person doesn't want to do it, which is why you can actually make lots of money doing it. So, being able to find or have dependable people in your team or group, or deciding, maybe I can do this by myself, really have the proposal there. That way it keeps track of everything, and whoever you're doing this for, it's agreed upon. But if you have any questions regarding this, let me know. Leave a comment down in the comment section. If this was helpful or you found anything helpful in this video, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Smash the like button. And as soon as not this coming Saturday, next Saturday comes, I will give an update regarding the event. But I hope this was useful for someone. I hope you're having a wonderful week and have a good weekend. This is Kid Hero, and I'll see you.